Hello and welcome. This is Lynda. So glad you're with me. We are in our third and final part of this series for beginners in slow stitch and fiber art to give you some confidence and a little bit of direction and maybe some tips that you hadn't thought about to help you get along on your journey of beginning your slow stitching, beginning your own designing, beginning to dabble in textile arts. Slow stitch and textile arts are so interchangeable for me, and a lot of people are kind of afraid when they hear the term textile art, but really, art is an original expression of yourself through some type of medium, and we're using textiles to do that. So let's not be scared of that, and let's create some of that of our own. Very simply, we started out with very simple things. We, in the beginning, only used one stitch, a straight stitch. Now, then I've added the flower petal, and this is one of my moonflowers that I had already had created. And I put the link to that video, how I create these moonflower medallions, in the description, so please feel free to hop over there and see how that's done. There's just no end of the things you can make with these medallions. I did put it on here, and then what I did is I added lazy daisy petal stitch. I did some here, over here, around here, basically to tack this medallion down and to give it a little bit more free flow, petally type feeling around the edges. And then I came with a third stitch and put some French knots in here in the different colors. So that makes a straight stitch, a lazy daisy stitch, a French knot stitch. Just 3 stitches completed this motif in the center here. The background, I am doing what they call a tack or tie. It's an old way of quilting quilts. Basically, a lot of times in the olden days, they would take an old quilt that's worn out and they would make a new top for it out of old fabrics, and then they would not stitch it, quilt it because it was too thick, but they would tie it off. Every so often they would put a tack or a tie stitch in it. And so that's the way they did that. But I always liked this stitch simply because it gave me raggy edges and it puts a lot of texture in there. I put a few in here already, but I thought I would do a couple here for you so that you would see how simple it is to do that. And basically, you're going to start from the top. You're just going to go down and take a stitch. But what you're going to do is you're going to leave enough thread at the end to tie. You're going to tie a knot, in other words. And so you do another one. And of course, when we quilted, we did this in a long continuous row. We made these running stitches. We didn't cut each one until we were done. But for what I'm doing here, this is, easy enough. Just take your 2 ends and knot them twice. Put a knot in there. And then just clip it the length you want it to be. You can stagger those lengths if you want to. It's fine too. You can leave them longer or shorter, however you want to do it. Okay. All right. We've just made 2 ties. That attached our foreground to our back piece of fabric so that it is not quilted, but it is attached. I'll show you that up close. And so when I finish doing a little bit of tacking, and you see what I do with, I put this on here and I see about what I'm going to have. And I know that I need to add a little more here, a couple down in here, and fill in here. And I don't need to do a bunch on the outside because it won't show. And once I frame this. But isn't that pretty? Now, I have the smaller frame. Anytime you make something, you always have choices of how you want to frame things. So I could bring this in much tighter, clip the flower itself a little bit, and frame it like that. I could come from this direction and frame it like that. So you have a lot of different choices depending on how you like. But if you have some mats at home to play with, your composition will be a lot easier to figure out because you can actually see what it's going to look like in that frame. And so if if I hang this as wall art, then I already have my composition figured out. Okay. Now, the other point that I told you in the last video that I wanted to talk about was how to get started on something. This is just two little pieces here just for demonstration purposes. But I think that one of the hardest things for someone to do when they just want to create something original, they want to design something, they want to collage something, is just to get something down. And what do you start with? Well, my answer to that is start with anything, just anything. Just get something down. That's the most important thing. For instance, let's cover this up with just a piece of fabric. That's pretty already. We're just like that already. But what if we had a scrunched up piece of ribbon? Okay, maybe we might do it like that. We have this little piece of gold trim here. What if we position that in there? And this was cut off of a scarf, and it's basically just some little fringy things. It looks like a little rag, but what if we cornered that, brought our fringes down, okay, and then what if we just kind of scattered a few little threads around? Now, when that gets sewn down, that makes a beautiful base, okay? You can add embroidery to it. You can, when you're slow stitching, you can be very creative doing that. You can take a motif that you like and make that your center point. Make this your background and put your motif in the center. You can do all kinds of things. One girl that I know loves to take old jewelry, especially pins. She finds at garage sales and things, and she makes that her motif for her little slow stitch. Isn't that pretty? And there's no end to what you could do with that if you have a collection of old pins. I think that one's beautiful. Wouldn't that make a beautiful little framed piece for a desk? What a gift that would make. But so you might start thinking about collecting some old pins, some old jewelry. You can make a collection of earrings and things like that. I have a little pin up here that I've been waiting for just the right piece to put it on, and I'm thinking, wow, I love that. Isn't that gorgeous? I would like to make that, finish it off, and frame it out. It's 3-dimensional, and give it as a gift to a very girly girl. Wouldn't that be pretty? But that's a beginning, and from a beginning, you use your imagination, and you go from there. Now let's try something a little bit different. Let's see, I've got some gauze over here. Let's try a piece of gauze. This silver and gray gauze. I love it because of the glitzy threads. Okay. Cover the batting. And then I have this piece. I think I will double it back over. Okay, that's a good palette to start with. But now what are we going to do there? Okay, I have this piece of lace that's been cut. Looks like it needs to be in a corner. So let's do that with it. Doesn't fight anything. I have, let's see, here's a scrap, and I love the colors, and I know those colors pretty. What if we kind of framed that with that? Okay, and this is a kind of an interesting piece of something. I don't know what, but it has some texture to it. Kind of mutes down this color, but it gives us some of these to play with. Okay, let's do something with some more color. Meanwhile, let's play up the silver part a little bit. Oh, I like that too. And then we have this thready thing. It was this came off of a wrap, a shawl, and I cut pieces off of it, and then I stretched these threads out to make it real raggy looking, and it makes a good piece also. Okay, that's also a gorgeous piece. I don't know if I have any jewelry that would go good with that, but just for, what if we put something like that on there? You know, that may not be the color you want to play with, but I like this one too. Isn't that pretty? So you just start somewhere. It doesn't matter what you start with, because the more you do this, the more you let the pieces talk to you, and the more you learn to audition. Don't throw out something before you, what I call, audition it. Put it on there. Try it out. You may just love it. Things that don't appear to go together very well will end up being a beautiful background for something. Now, you don't necessarily have to leave these as backgrounds. Like I said, you can finish them off with some just slow stitches or embroidery, and you've got a finished piece right there. And so don't be afraid to start, because starting only means put something down, anything. Just get something down. And from that is your beginning. It's when you're looking at this blank piece of whatever that defeats you. That's totally defeating. But once you get something down, you're on your way. And believe me, if you've got some scraps around you, some threads around you, some yarns around you, some doodads around you, you'll see things that you want to mix with it. So don't let beginning stop you. Don't let how do I begin stop you from designing your own pieces. You are going to have so much fun when you start doing this on your own. Okay? So all right, that's the end of this series, and I hope you enjoyed the tips and the little tricks and the little advice, and I hope you can play with them all and have the time of your life. Okay? Whatever you do though, stay scrap happy.